Hello everyone, and welcome to the recap of all things track of the day for February of 2026. Whether it be the authors of said tracks, the styles of them, Cup of the Day winners, world record holders, or many of the other various stats, I will have them all here for you today. Like done previously, the first category we will look at is the authors themselves, because without them, we would not have the tracks in the first place. The month of February would have 33 different authors, which is down from the 38 featured in January. February did, however, have 2 authors making multiple tracks in the month compared to the one from last month, with those 2 being Link and Taco, who each had 2 tracks apiece. However, Artroy's 3 tracks from January will remain the most in a month this year. February would also give us 12 first-time authors, which is 5 more than January's 7. This includes tracks from AK, Dexy, Fuente, June Salad, Lack, Limelight, Midbooz, Pablito, Rezi, Salty, Surf Ramp, and Flowy. So congratulations to all who had a track chosen this month, but what styles of tracks did these authors actually make? The month of February had 16 different styles of track showcase, that being 3 more than January's 13 different styles. Yet again, leading the way, just like January, will be mixed tracks, but this time alongside of it will be Dirt, which both were featured 5 times. This is a 3-track drop for mixed, but a 2-track increase for Dirt. Behind these styles, we have Tech staying steady at 4 tracks once again, and the same could be said for Full Speed, which was featured twice. This means there were 12 tracks of other various styles, including the additions of Desert Car, Bobsleigh, Grass Plastic, NASCAR, Reactor Wood, and Transitional. Now, surprisingly absent from January styles were Ice and Speed Fun, but maybe unsurprisingly, the new addition of the Bobsleigh track would give us the most difficult author medal of the month. February did seem a little bit more consistent on author medal difficulty than January did, but there were still a few outliers. Like I previously mentioned, Lack's bobsleigh track Valor was the most difficult author medal of the month, with only 3 players having the author medal at its day's end. However, those 3 players would still be more than 3 different tracks had in January. The next closest to Valor would be 65 players on Modern Art by Nolafis, and then 71 players on Polychrome by Dexy and Mango. Now, on the easier side of things, 1 track would stand out by far, and that was the Grass track Switcheroo by Mika Pekka, which saw over 10,000 players with the author medal, and that is about 3,000 more than the easiest in January. The next closest to that was about 2,700 players getting the AT on Saturday Cruise by Strange Bug, followed by about 1,500 on Snow Course by Fuente. Also, speaking of the track Switcheroo, it would also have the longest author medal time in February. Going strictly by author times, there was a difference of nearly 37 seconds between the longest and shortest tracks of February. Like previously mentioned, Switcheroo was the longest track of the month with an author time of 1 minute and 7.002 seconds, and the shortest track in February was Linux by Striderin, which had an AT of just 29.6 seconds. For February as a whole, the average author time was 45.055 seconds, which is ever so slightly longer than January's average time of 44.96 seconds. This will therefore raise the average 2026 AT time to 45.008 seconds. However, as usual, the author times don't always show the whole picture, so while Linux was still the shortest by its world record time, the longest track was actually Snow Course with its world record time of 54.084 seconds. But with all this said, the authors, styles, and ATs, how well were these tracks actually received by the community? Overall, February would have a very slight increase from January's 50-50 split of positive and negative tracks, with February having 14 positive and 13 negative, and again, 1 that had a score of 0. For the 14 positively rated tracks, the highest rated one came on Jades, which received a score of 1.1, equating to a high plus, and being 0.4 score from a plus rating. This score of 1.1, however, does fall short of January's highest scoring track, which received a 1.4. As for the other 13 positive scoring tracks, 6 of them also received a plus rating, and 7 of them resulted in neutrals. Now for the 13 negative scores, the lowest one came on Fuente's track snow course, which had a score of negative 2.2, equating to a rating of a minus. That negative 2.2 is also negative 0.3 score from a triple minus, however that score is also slightly better than January's worst scoring track, which received a negative 2.3. As for the other 12 negative scoring tracks, 6 of them resulted in minuses, and 6 were neutrals. Finally, despite there being more positive scores than negatives, the negatives still outweighed the positives, and the average score for February tracks was a negative 0.14, a low neutral. However, this will once again be a very slight positive increase from January's score, which was a negative 0.2. But whether the tracks were received well or not, there were still plenty of participants for the Cup of the Days. Cup of the Days in February had about 2,275 participants, which is a nearly 200 player increase from January, which averaged just about 2,087 players. Now, the most popular day for participation in February was Mondays, a change from Tuesdays in January, with Mondays averaging about 2,426 players. Sundays remained the second most popular with 2,371 players. The least popular days continue to be Fridays and Saturdays, in which February had nearly the same amount of participants at 2,143 and 2,145 players respectively. As for the individual days, the highest number of participants in a cup this month would come on February 22nd with Midbooz's rally car track Blue Lagoon, which had 2,691 participants. This does, however, fall short of January's highest total of 2,858. Behind Blue Lagoon was the track Jades, which had 2,566 participants, followed by 2,489 on the aforementioned track Switcheroo. Now, as for the lowest player count this month, that would come on the first day with Nolafis's track Modern Art, which had 1,943 players. This is still a fairly large increase from January's lowest total of 1,770. The next fewest amount of players would come on Speed of Light with 2,001 participants, followed by Scottish Hill Desert Car with 2,009 participants. But with all of these different players, who was actually winning the Cup of the Days? February would have plenty of Cup of the Day wins to go around, with a total of 21 winners compared to the 17 winners of January. At the top of the list, we have 3 players tied with 3 wins apiece, and that includes Grenady, Levant, and Purple. However, these 3 wins are down from Grenady's 10-win dominance from January. The only other player in February with multiple wins was Barbos, who came strong during the final week with 2 wins in total. There was also not a huge win streak in February either, with the highest and only win streak being 2 by Levant, which is again down from Grenady's streak of 3 in January. Although Grenady did have a streak of 3 which extended in between the 2 months if you wish to count that. As for the first-time winners, February would have 4 compared to the 3 in January, with those first-time winners being Matt P, Miles, Nitek, and Redzin. So congrats to all the fast learners this month, but who came away as the top time attack hunters? The month of February would see an increase of unique world record holders from January, increasing by 2 from 23 to 25. Therefore, February would most likely have a decrease in the amount a single player could earn, and that would be the case as January's top world record holder, Propanoia, dropped from 5 world records down to 2. However, those 2 world records would still put them in a tie for the top spot in February with 2 others, with those players being Josh and Roquette. And with just those 2 wins apiece, streaking was not all that prevalent, but Propanoia still managed to get their world records on back-to-back days on the final 2 days of the month. But with that, we will conclude the Track of the Day recap for February of 2026. As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all here next time with March's recap.